Hello! Today we're talking about the rules for keyword outlining. Before we get to keyword outlining, we're going to discuss the two basic things we focus on in our writing with IEW, and that is we focus on both structure and style. So structure is like the structure of a house. You have a foundation, walls, and a roof. And the style is how you dress it up with the paint colors and your pillows and those things. So with our writing, our structure, the main tool we're using is a keyword outline. So KWO is our keyword outline. This is the structure for our writing. And then the style is when we add like a vocab word to our paragraph that we've written, or like an ly adverb. And the rule we go by is easy plus one. So whatever is easy, we're gonna do, and then each week add one new stylistic technique, which is what we call our dress up. So like an ly adverb in our vocab would be some of our dress ups to dress up our writing. So we just start with whatever is easy and then add one new thing. So structure and style. So we're gonna start with the structure piece, which is our keyword outline, and we're going to go over the rules. So it's kind of like a game, and it's really fun for kids to get this concept at first. So the rules for keyword outlining are symbols, numbers, and abbreviations are free. You can use as many symbols, numbers, and abbreviations do not count against you on your keyword outline. The rule is that you cannot use more than 3 words per line. So only 3 words, and then as many numbers, symbols, and abbreviations to take your notes. So what we're going to do is we're going to read a source text together, and then we're going to stop with a few sentences and just see what the 3 main words are in that sentence. So this whole process begins with just taking each sentence, keyword outlining it line by line, so each sentence is on here. Gradually through the program, they learn to then filter through their facts and then use even whatever is most important or interesting. But right now, just to start the process, they're just gonna go line by line. So we're gonna practice it together. We have our rules. One little note about the symbols is that if it takes longer to draw your symbol and it turns into a piece of art rather than a quick symbol, then it's no longer a symbol and you can't use it. You got to do something else. Either use the word or use a symbol. So symbols could be like a simple stick figure for people. You could do like a heart if it's like love or want or desire. You can do like a hashtag for something. Symbols like the @ symbol I use a lot. Arrows are great symbols like before, behind, below, between. Those are just some examples of brief symbols that you can use. And it's kind of like shorthand. Note-taking is what they end up learning. Beautiful skill. So we're going to read about the Nile River. The source text is on the Nile River. So depending on your age group, you may want to go around and have each student read a couple sentences. If you know that that is uncomfortable for some, then you would just read it aloud and then break down, okay, let's work together on the keyword outline together. So you want to model this in class first, and then they know how to then walk through at home this whole process. So let's read on the Nile River. The Nile River in Africa is the longest river in the world. It begins in the rivers that flow into Lake Victoria, and it empties into the Mediterranean Sea. It flows north through or along 10 countries. Every year, floods deposit dirt and fine sand called silt in the soil along the sides of the river. This silt helps the plants thrive. From space, the Nile looks like a green ribbon against the Sahara Desert. Many people depend on it for farming, transportation, and electricity. Okay, so we just read our source text. At home, we like to read it more than once so that we really understand it. And when this whole keyword outlining process becomes, if it's a challenge for somebody, you're reading aloud to them, then maybe you read with emphasis to help them pick up on key words that, oh, like maybe, yeah, maybe that's a good one. So the Nile River in Africa is the longest river in the world. So if you emphasize when you're working with your students to kind of give them clues if they're struggling with what is the main key word from this sentence. So let's just take one sentence right here for a number 1. So for the basic, I'm using right now, this is for the 3rd through 4th graders. If you're doing 5th or 6th, you will start with a Roman numeral, and that is going to be your first sentence up here, and that will eventually, as they progress, turn into a topic sentence, but we're not there yet. So right now I'm just going to start with the simple right here. Number 1 is our first sentence. So the Nile River in Africa is the longest river in the world. So I'm going to ask the students, but maybe I'll just go ahead and pick for them the first couple so they get the idea. So I'll pick for you. The Nile River in Africa is the longest river in the world. That's my first fact, my first sentence. And I'm going to pick the top 3. But I'm thinking too, if of my rules, so symbols, numbers, and abbreviations are free, I could use the Nile River. I think that could be an abbreviation. So I'm going to start with the Nile River. Oh, this is a really important thing for keyword outlining is whatever we come up with on here for our symbols, numbers, abbreviations, and words, the idea, if you did a really good job, then you should be able to the next day remember what you meant by that. So if it's too far out there, then it's not going to work if you can't remember. Okay, so we've got the Nile River in where? Africa. So we could just write Africa as one of our keywords. It was the longest river in the world. So I think I would do longest. And then I think you could do a symbol here for river. If you just remember. Okay, in the where? In the world. Now, world you could do, it has to be a brief world, like not a super detailed world. So, okay, there's my brief symbol for world. So I have, how many words do I have on this line? Africa and longest. So that is the goal. 2 to 3 words, that's all we want per line. And then I used abbreviation and symbols. And now let's see how successful that was. If I could then later turn that into my own sentence. Okay, the Nile River in Africa is the longest river in the entire world. Okay, yes, that's a successful one, I think, right there. Let's do the next one. We're going to look at the next sentence that we read. It begins in the rivers that flow into Lake Victoria and empties into the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, it's a longer sentence. We need to pick our key words. So it begins in the rivers that flow. I'm trying to think for begins. Can you think of a symbol for begins? Maybe not. I can't think of something on the spot. So it begins in the rivers that flow into Lake Victoria and empties into the Mediterranean Sea. So I think I would just need that word if I can't think of a symbol. So begins. It begins in the river. So this is where in, I think I would do an arrow like this. In what? In the rivers. How do you like that symbol? Okay, it begins in the rivers, what? That flow into Lake Victoria. I feel like we're going to need to write that one. Lake Victoria. And then, I forgot the other rule. Each word and symbol and number must be separated by a comma. That's the rule. We're separating by a comma. I knew I was missing a rule. So begins in the rivers that flow into Lake Victoria and empties into the Mediterranean Sea. Empties into Mediterranean Sea. Okay, how many words do I have if I do this for mine? Begins, Lake Victoria, okay, Mediterranean Sea, that's 3, and I have some symbols. So begins, there you go, that's the second one. And the idea of this, once they learn this skill, it sets them up for putting their paragraph that they're writing from a source text into their own words, and it flows easily. So that's a beautiful skill that they're learning, and they can apply it in a lot of other areas that we'll get into. But let's look at another one together. So the third sentence is, it flows north through or along 10 countries. Okay, so now maybe I'm turning it to them. Okay, guys, what do you think the 3 main words are in this sentence? Okay, it flows north through or along 10 countries. Okay, yes, I think you're right. It flows. So maybe we could do flows. And then north, you could do an N, right? Abbreviation for north. Flows north. You could do an arrow for through or along. And then what else doesn't count against you? What do you guys think? Yes, you're right. Numbers do not count against you. So we could say 10. That doesn't count against us. And countries. So it flows north through 10 countries. That's interesting. Let's do another one. Every year, floods deposit dirt and fine sand called silt in the soil along the sides of the river. Okay, it's a longer sentence. So what do you guys think the key words are? Let's read it again. And sometimes a helpful tip would be to have a highlighter. And as you're reading the sentence again, you just highlight or circle the key words that you think. If you got to pick your main 3 words and then see if you can fit some symbols for other words. Okay, so every year floods deposit dirt. So we're going to go with floods. Deposit dirt called, okay, silt would be a key word. We don't want to forget that. In the soil along the sides of the river. Okay, so that could look like the floods, silt, we don't want to forget that, and where? In the soil. Do we need something else to help us remember this fact? Let's see. Every year the floods deposit dirt, which is called silt. I can't think of another symbol. If you guys can think of another symbol, usually students are really good at coming up with a symbol on the spot. But really, so you do not have, that's another rule, you don't have to use abbreviations and symbols and numbers in every sentence either. What you do have to have is at least 3 words. So that would work for us. Let's do another one. We have, the next sentence is, this silt helps the plants thrive. This silt helps the plants thrive. Okay, so the silt helps the plants thrive. Trying to think of maybe a little helping hand. Don't judge me for my little symbols. There's my helping hand. The silt helps what? Plants thrive. Okay, have a little helping hand, helping the plants thrive. Okay, the next sentence is, from space, the Nile looks like a green ribbon against the Sahara Desert. Okay, from where? Okay, space. I mean, you could do some stars and think about, if you think you're gonna remember space, you could do like a few stars. So from space, the Nile River, we had that abbreviation already, so if you start with an abbreviation, you can continue that and you're gonna remember. So the Nile River looks like. Oh, whenever we have looks, that's when I like to use my eyeballs. Looks, if you can remember, that's eyeballs. So front space, the Nile River looks like what? A green ribbon. How many words did I use, guys? Oh, I only used 2, and I have some abbreviations and symbols that don't count against me. And I think that's pretty easy to remember. If you always, so what symbols you start using, you want to try to use them many times so you know, oh, that's my symbol for this. I'm going to do it really fast and remember what that says. So this is just to give an idea of what a keyword outline would look like. So typically, like one day, you would model this in class, work through it together, and then depending on which book you have, there may be another assignment that they could then take that and apply the next assignment. So, or I have given my students a choice. If they like the one we did in class and if they can remember it, then they can use that if they took notes in class to then write their paragraph. So if the assignment is to write one paragraph, then maybe one day is your keyword outline. Your next day's assignment would be to then turn that into your paragraph. And it's really easy to do if you did a good job. They have to put it in their own words. So they're going to turn this into their paragraph. So without referring back to the source text, if possible. If you forget something, then okay, you need to go back to your source text to remember what that symbol was. But the goal is to not go back. So one day could be doing their keyword outline. Another day is then writing their one paragraph. So spitting each of these facts into their own sentence. And they have that. And then another day would be reading it aloud and see, how does this sound? Do I need to make some changes? Do I need to reword anything so that it makes perfect sense? And then when they're ready, another day would be learning to add their dress-ups to their paragraph. So I can talk a little bit about that. You already got a picture of this? Okay. So that is the, in a nutshell, a very quick version of the keyword outline rules. And then I just walked you through how to do it, and that's exactly what you do in class. Go over the rules, it's kind of like a game, and then you ask them, quiz them, see if they remember the rules for the keyword outline. And then I'm going to go over a little bit then of the dress up. So each week you're basically teaching a different dress up. So we could start with the ly adverb. Is the easiest to catch on. So we have to define that. What is an adverb? Maybe we start there. Like, let's define what we're talking about. What is an adverb? Did you guys memorize that in a song already? Maybe. An adverb modifies a verb, adjective, or another adverb and answers the questions. Ooh, am I mixing it up? Okay, wait, no. Yeah, adverbs modify verbs. So an adverb modifies a verb, adjective, or another adverb and answers the questions. How, when, why, how often, how much to what extent, under what condition. Woo! So there's a song for that. It answers all those questions, but basically for this purpose, it's remembering that the clue is in the word. Verbs. So adverbs modify other verbs or adjectives, but that's the main one. So they describe how you do something, right? A verb is a word that asserts an action, shows a state of being, or links two words together, or helps another verb. So here we go. So we're going to do an outline adverb example would be describe how, let's look for a verb in our Nile River. Nile River is the longest river in the world. It begins in the rivers that flow. Okay, how does it flow? Okay, so let's go with that sentence. It begins, looking for my sentence now. It begins in the rivers that flow into Lake Victoria. Okay, here's my sentence, and so we need to find a verb that we can describe. So that flow, so the rivers that flow, so how do they flow? What could be a word that would describe how these rivers flow? Is there anything you can think of? Yeah, Sharon can talk.
Oh, okay. Flow quickly?
Quickly. That flow quickly. Okay, so quickly could be an ly adverb. Gracefully. That gracefully flow. That simultaneous. What's the word I'm thinking? Simultaneously?
Yes.
At the same time?
Yeah.
Don't ask me to spell that. And so what we have, once we teach the ly adverb, it becomes like a game of where can we interject just one ly adverb into our paragraph. So the goal is one dress up per paragraph. And then the more dress ups you add, you want to add one of each dress up to each paragraph. And that's what they build up to. So starting with the ly adverb is a really fun one, and it becomes like a game once they look at their paragraph and see where is a verb that I would like to describe how something's being done. So it was gracefully, it was peacefully, it was maybe he was angrily. It was, so we actually have a whole list in your book, and we can tab that for the students of examples of ly adverbs that you could add and insert vocab for different things. So vocab is also in the back of their book. And then you also have a master vocab sheet at the back of the teaching guide. And so I like to tab those because you can refer to it and do vocab games and all kinds of fun ways to keep that vocab exciting. One of the things I like to do for vocab is write all the latest vocab, just the words all over the board, and then I'll call out definition, and they have to, maybe they're in teams, and see if they can figure how many they can get right, because some of them are a little tricky. So that keeps it fun and exciting. So that is our nutshell of the very beginnings of keyword outline, inserting an ly adverb, and then a vocab, and see if a vocab word where it would make sense in your paragraph. So one day could be the keyword outline, one day writing your rough draft paragraph from your keyword outline, and then one day adding your dress ups and edits and making sure it all flows smooth. And then they're ready to bring their paragraph into class and read it in front of the class. And then we do active listening. So all the students should have a little whiteboard and a dry erase marker. And you have to set this up and tell them the rules. So the rules when someone is reading a paper is we're active listening, and we're going to write on our boards when we hear an ly adverb. Every time you hear an ly adverb or a vocab word, or once you get to it, a who, which clause, when you hear those, or a because clause, they'll get to those. They're supposed to write those, and then they get to share at the end of someone's paragraph that they read. They're all gonna raise their hand, oh, I know what I heard, and you let them go around, okay, give me one thing that you heard in Silas's paper. Oh, he used simultaneously. Yes, and what is that? ly adverb. Yes, good job, you're listening. Did you hear a vocab word? What was the vocab word? The vocab word was, what's the vocab word on the first one? Do you remember? It's in the back. Let's just say it was transportation. I'm just making it up. Transportation. Okay, what is transportation? Oh, it's what is the definition of transportation? I don't know. Something to get you from point A to point B. So what are examples of transportation? Okay, so the point is, if you are listening for an ly adverb or a vocab word that they all know, and they write that down on the boards and they're happy to share, and that teaches them to listen for these skills that we're teaching them in each other's papers, and they love it. It's like a game too. So I hope that's helpful. This is just a start. We're gonna have training nights for both teachers and parents to be on board with the whole IEW teaching, writing, and structure and style. And we go much more in depth, but this is like the core basics to get you started. And let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.